You've heard it your whole life. If your name is Hébert, or Landry, or Broussard, you're Cajun, pure Cajun. Acadian blood straight down the line. And somewhere out there, a DNA test is waiting to confirm it. To hand you a certificate that says, this is your true bloodline. But here's what the test won't print on that certificate. The story your surname is hiding is not the one you were promised. It's stranger, it's older, and by the end of this, you'll understand why the truth in your blood is far larger than any single name. 15 surnames, one founding people, and a secret the DNA almost buried. The myth is simple, and it is everywhere, that a Cajun surname is a straight, unbroken pipe running from you back to one pure Acadian source. That Boudreaux or Thibodeaux is a password, and the DNA is the lock. And it feels true because these names really do cluster in South Louisiana like nowhere else on Earth. Hébert alone is carried by more than 21,000 people in Louisiana, the 9th most common surname in the entire state. Landry, Broussard, Guidry, LeBlanc, they crowd the bayou parishes the way they crowd no other place in America. So the question writes itself. If the names are that concentrated, is the blood? Here is where it stops being simple, because to understand these 15 names, you first have to understand an almost impossible act of compression. The Acadians did not begin as a nation. Researchers estimate they began as roughly 50 French families, 50, who settled a cold, tidal corner of Canada before the year 1650. From those few dozen households, an entire people grew. By the time the British came for them a century later, there were around 13,000. Think about what that means. A whole population threaded back through just a handful of founding names. Geneticists have a term for this, a founder population. When a people grows large from very few ancestors and marries mostly within itself, its DNA does not spread out. It concentrates. The same segments of ancestry passed down, folded over again and again. And in Acadia, the walls that kept that pool closed were not only choice, they were water and exile. The tidal marshes of the north and later the drowned, root-tangled bayous of Louisiana worked like a genetic filter, a landscape that trapped a signal and let it thicken. You can even measure the fingerprint of that compression. In one study of 60 healthy Acadians, researchers found that nearly 3 out of 4 carried at least one recessive disease variant, a rate you simply do not see in the general European population. Certain conditions that are vanishingly rare elsewhere appear here again and again. Friedreich's ataxia, Tay-Sachs, a form of deafness and blindness so bound to this people that scientists literally named its mutation the Acadian allele. That is the paradox. These names don't only mark a heritage, they mark a bottleneck, a place where history squeezed a whole people through the eye of a needle. So how much of that story is really written in your DNA? And what happens when you finally go looking? This is where we open the archive. Because your body keeps 3 separate records, and each one tells a different part of the story. Your Y-DNA runs father to father to father, the line that usually travels with the surname. Your mtDNA runs mother to mother to mother, and it does not care about your last name at all. And your autosomal DNA is everything else, the full, shuffled inheritance of all your recent ancestors, recombined and dealt out fresh in every single generation. Start with the surname line, follow it back, and the paper trail is real. The Broussards of Louisiana descend from 2 brothers, Joseph and Alexander Broussard, called Beausoleil, who reached New Orleans in 1765. The Thibodeaux name traces to a founding couple, Pierre Thibodeaux and Jeanne Thériault, in Old Acadia. Trahan runs back to a single man, Guillaume Trahan, who crossed from France in the 1600s. These are not legends. They are documented in genealogy stretching back 3.5 centuries. So the DNA confirms Act 1, partly. The Acadian founder signal is real. You can see it in the stretches of DNA that Cajuns passed down in common, that concentrated fingerprint of a bottlenecked people. But now the archive does something you didn't expect. It refuses to hand you a pure bloodline because there is no single Acadian marker, no one haplogroup that says Cajun. When researchers actually tested these families, they didn't find one paternal line, they found many. Scattered branches with no common root. The surname is one thread. The DNA is a whole tapestry, and most of its threads don't share your name at all. And then there are the stories the DNA whispers that nobody expected. Take Radegonde Lambert, an Acadian foremother whose maternal descendants carry a rare signature called X2B4. For years, some believed it pointed to Native American ancestry, proof of a deep indigenous root. But as more people tested, the picture changed. The lineage traced back to Europe after all, and geneticists quietly registered a new Acadian branch all its own. The mystery didn't resolve, it only got larger. That's the lesson of the living archive. Your autosomal DNA almost certainly carries a real, small trace of native ancestry, on the order of 1 or 2%, and wildly uneven from one cousin to the next. It may carry African ancestry, German, Spanish, Creole. Because South Louisiana was never a sealed jar, it was a meeting ground where the exiled Acadians made their lives beside native nations, free people of color, enslaved Africans, and immigrants from 3 continents. DNA does reveal your Acadian roots. It just refuses to pretend they were ever the whole of you. So why does the myth of the pure bloodline hold on so hard? Why do we want the name to be a straight line home? Here is the part that deserves tenderness. In 1755, the British did something with a plan behind it. They loaded the Acadians onto ships, split families across different boats on purpose, and scattered them down the length of the Atlantic to strange colonies, back to a France they had never seen, into the Caribbean. They called it le Grand Dérangement, the Great Upheaval. And its intent was to erase a people from the map. When almost everything is taken from you, your land, your home, sometimes the people standing beside you on the dock, what is left? A name, a language, a church, a memory of who your cousins were. So the fierce holding on to Acadian names, the close marriages, the insistence on the line, that was never ignorance. It was survival. For a scattered people, a surname was sometimes the only proof left of where you came from and who you belonged to. The instinct to say, "This name is my blood," was born in the hold of an exile ship. Give it dignity. But the truth the DNA offers is not smaller than that myth. It is larger. Your name is a real clue, one of the best clues French Louisiana ever kept. But your body is a palimpsest, an Acadian founder written over an indigenous marsh, written over an African South, written over every road your ancestors were forced to walk. You are not a single bloodline. You are the record of a people who were scattered on purpose and refused to disappear. That is what survived the ships. Not purity, survival itself. So tell me, which of the 15 do you carry? Hébert, Boudreaux, Guidry, Trahan, one of the others? And what is the story your family tells about where it came from? Drop your surname and your parish in the comments. Somewhere in this thread is a cousin you have never met. And together we are rebuilding the archive they tried to erase.